Okay. So we learned the quadratic formula last time, and now we get kind of a shortened version of the quadratic formula. This is called the square root method. This helps us solve quadratic equations that are only two terms, right? Only two terms. So the way the square root method works is if I have, so let's say over here, if I have x squared equal to some number k, and in order to solve for x, I would square root both sides, and I would get x equals plus and minus the square root of k. So whenever you use the square root method, you get two answers. You get a positive answer and you get a negative answer. And one of the easiest reasons for this to explain is because of the power. Whatever the power x has tells you how many answers you should have. So if it's x squared, I'm going to get two answers. One is going to be positive and the other is going to be negative. Okay, so this is the square root method. So in order to solve for x, we square root both sides. Well, we need to get the x squared by itself. And then after you get x squared by itself, you square root both sides and solve for x. Okay, seems pretty straightforward, right? Definitely a lot less formula than the quadratic formula. All right, so let's try it out. Number one, x squared minus 16 equal to 0. Of course, we are going to add that 16 over. So you will get x squared equal to 16, and then you will square root both sides. And what is the square root of 16?
4.
And since it's a square root method, we're not only going to get 4, we are going to get positive and negative 4. That's it. All right. Again, look at number 2. Add that 100 over, and you get x squared equals 100. Square root both sides. And what is the square root of 100?
10.
10.
I have a question. Is this the difference of squares rule? Do I remember? Am I remembering?
If we
it
are
correctly?
factoring, then yes, but we haven't learned factoring. If you know how to factor, then that is perfect. So I'll just show you a quick look at that. You would have, this would factor to x plus 4, x minus 4. And if you solve for x on both of these, you'd get x equals negative 4 and x equals 4. Once again, proving that whenever you square root something, you get a positive answer and a negative answer, plus or minus 4.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay,
I was,
cool.
that's how I was going to solve it, but I was just like, well, wait, let me see what he's going to do first.
You can
I
factor
have-
it if you want. If you know factoring, go on ahead. But again, we haven't learned factoring. That's not till the next lecture.
I mean, isn't it easier to just not factor and just square root both sides though?
Yeah. Either way you want to
Okay.
handle it. But
I'm here. I also have one more question. On the
Mhm.
homework, are all of them going to be perfect square roots,
I don't
or are
think
they going to be
so.
like decimals and stuff?
I think we're gonna get some square roots that we have to break down like we did last time. Like if it was like the square root of
Gotcha.
70 or something, we'd have to break it down and see
Okay.
what we can do. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3. Well, I'm glad to hear that some of you know how to factor because we are going to be factoring a lot on Monday. So refresh on factoring when we get into Monday. Okay. I can even refer you to some of my factoring videos on YouTube. Yeah. All right. So 3, x squared plus 25. Of course, subtract that 25 to the right side and get x squared equal to negative 25. And then square root both sides. But what happens when you square root a negative number?
You get an
You have to put
imaginary
that I
number,
in
right?
front.
You get an imaginary number. And so here, I'll even break this down for you. This becomes the square root of -1. Actually, let me do this better. Sorry. So if you're breaking down the square root of -25, you can make this the square root of -1 and the square root of 25. Well, square root of -1, what we learned last time, becomes the letter I, representing the imaginary number. And the square root of 25 is 5. So our final answer here is plus or minus 5i, or I5, however you want to write it. That's it.
Now it's -25 because there's a plus sign there in front of the 25.
Say that again.
And you moved it over to your right.
Exactly. So since it's positive, in order to get it to the right side, we had to subtract it. So that's why it's negative.
Okay. This
Very good. Very good. Okay. So 4. Let's keep it going. Subtract that 88 to the right side, and you would get x squared equals, and what's 7 minus 88? Anybody? Anybody? 7 minus 88.
-81.
-81. Good. So again, move that over, subtract it over, and then now you will square root both sides. And again, we have the square root of a negative number. So we can split this into the square root of -1 and the square root of 81. Square root of -1 becomes I. And what is the square root of 81?
9.
9. And you get x equals plus or minus 9i. Okay, not bad. All right, let's keep it going. So many negative ones, man. So 5, x squared plus 7 equal to 4. Subtract that 7 over, and you get x squared equals what?
-3.
-3. Okay. And then square root both sides, and you'll get x equals, and of course, you can break this down into the square root of -1 again. And this will be the square root of 3. This becomes I. And can you break down the square root of 3?
No.
No. So we're left with plus or minus I square root 3. Okay. More. Number 6. X squared minus 4 equal to -5. Add that 4 over. And what do we have? X squared equal to? -1. Square root both sides. Square root. And here, well, you get the square root of -1. So this becomes x equals plus or minus what?
I.
That's it. Everybody good so far? Some thumbs. Who's alive out there? All right. Okay. Cool. Keep it going. All right. 7. 6x squared equal to 90. Okay. So of course we want x squared by itself. So this means the first thing we're going to do is divide by 6. And what is 90 divided by 6?
15.
15. Good. And then You square root both sides. And 15 is the square root of 5 and square root of 3. Can you break those down anymore?
No.
No. So that means that this just becomes x equals plus or minus square root 15. Okay. Sweet. And now, number 8. 99 minus 4x squared equal to 0. What do you guys want to move over? The 4x squared or the 99?
Four x squared.
Okay, we'll add that to the right side. Cool. You'll get 99 equal to 4x squared, and then we will divide by 4. And what we're left with is 99 over 4 equal to x squared. Now, I believe 4 doesn't go into 99, right?
Right.
So since we can't simplify that, we square root both sides. And let's see what we're looking at. So here we're looking at the square root of 99. So give me 2 numbers that make 99.
9 and 11.
9 and 11. And the square root of 9, 3. Can we break down the square root of 11?
No.
No. So here's what we're working with. So now we know that 99 breaks into 3 square root 11 over, and what's the square root of 4?
2.
2. There you go. Of course, don't forget your plus or minus. All right. Cool. All right, let's keep it going. 9, 3/4 x squared equal to 12. Okay, so we have to get rid of that 3/4. Do you want to divide by 3/4 or do you want to multiply by the reciprocal?
Multiply.
Multiply by the reciprocal, of course. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4/3. 4/3. And if we do that, cancel, 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 and you're left with x squared on the left side, and then 12 times 4/3. What does that give me? Can this 3 go into that 12?
Yes.
How many times?
4.
4. So that becomes a 1. That becomes a 4. And what's 4 times 4?
16.
16. Look at that. And then square root both sides. And of course, we get x equals plus or minus 4. Okay, cool. All right. Again, right? So number 10, 49x squared plus 16 equal to 8. Move that 16 over, and you have 49x squared equal to -8. And then divide by 49. And 8 and 49 don't reduce, right?
No.
No. So you're left with x squared equal to -8 over 49. And then you square root both sides. And here's what we're looking at. All right. So -8, that becomes square root -1, square root 8. What are two numbers that make up 8?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. So there we go. What we're going to have is 2 square root of 2 and the I for there. Here, I should probably write that better somewhere else. Just so we have the room, why not? So square root of -8. So we know that that broke down into the square root of -1. And then we had the square root of 8. So that was I. And then this broke into square root 4, square root 2, and that became 2. Okay, so you're left with 2 square root of 2 times I. So what we're left with is x equals plus or minus 2I square root of 2 all over, and what is the square root of 49?
7.
7.
7.
7.
There you go. Look at that. Not bad. Okay. 11. X squared plus 5 equal to 17. So of course, move that 5 over, subtract it, and you get x squared equal to 12. Square root both sides, and x equals plus or minus, give me two numbers that make up 12.
3 and 4.
3 and 4. And we know 4 breaks down to 2, and this leaves us with 2 square root 3. Excellent. All right. All right, 12. X squared minus 41 equal to 0. Add that over. And x squared equals 41. Square root both sides. And can you break down 41?
No.
No, right? We leave that as is, square root of 41. So you're left with x equals plus or minus square root 41. Okay. All right. Good. 13, negative 8x squared minus 6x equal to negative 30. So first thing, add that 6 over, and you get negative 8x squared. If you add 6 to that, is that negative 24. And then divide by negative 8, divide by negative 8, and x squared is equal to 3. Square root both sides. And can you break down the square root of 3?
No.
No. There we go. There's our answer. Okay. 14. X squared minus 17 equal to 6. Add that 17 over, and you'll get x squared equal to 23. Square root both sides. And can you break down 23?
No.
No. That stays just like that. Okay. Fractions, yeehaw. All right, 15. 1/2 x squared minus 29 equal to 3. Add that 29 over. And you get 1/2 x squared equal to 32. Now you can divide by 1/2, or do you want to multiply both sides by the reciprocal?
Reciprocal.
Reciprocal.
Both sides,
So
yeah.
we're going to multiply both sides by 2. And cancel, cancel. And we have x squared equal to 64. Square root. And what is the square root of 64?
8.
Good, 8. Don't forget your plus or minus. Okay. Sweet. And 16. All right. 3/4 x squared plus 1/3 equal to 0. Okay. First step, move that 1/3 over. So 3/4 x squared equal to -1/3. And just like the other one, divide by 3/4 or multiply by the reciprocal.
Reciprocal.
Reciprocal, always easy. Multiply both sides by 4/3. And cancel, 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 cancel. You get x squared equal to -4/9. All right. And then square root both sides, and you'll get x equals plus or minus. What's my answer?
Be -4/9.
Square root of -4/9. What is the square root of -4?
2i.
2i. What's the square root of 9?
3.
That's it. Look at that. That was not bad at all, guys. Woo. Okay. Any questions on that page? Everybody good with it? All right. Definitely better than Monday, right? Okay. All right. Well, of course, some application problems for the square root method. So number 17, one more, right? There we go. Perfect. In science class, students were asked to create a container to hold an egg, which they would then drop from a window. The function h of t equals -16t squared plus 25 gives the container's height in feet and after t seconds. How many seconds will it take for the container to hit the ground? So if we're looking for how many seconds, again, this is looking for time. So if the container hit the ground, what is the height if you have hit the ground?
0.
0. So the height is 0, and we are looking for time. So with that information, we take this equation and set it equal to 0. -16t squared plus 25 equal to 0. And now solve for t. And we're going to use the square root method. So move that 25 over. And -16 squared equals -25. Divide by -16, divide by -16. And you get t squared equals 25 over 16. And now what do you do to both sides?
Square root.
Square root. And t is going to equal plus or minus, and what's our answer here?
5/4.
5/4. But we want to give this in seconds, so we have to change this into a decimal. What is 5 divided by 4?
1.25.
1.25. Okay, and now this is important. Since we're talking about time, can we have negative 1.25 seconds?
No.
No, we only keep the positive one. So it's going to be 1.25 seconds. So the container will hit the ground in 1.25 seconds. All right. Everyone good with that? Okay. 18. Use the equation 9x squared minus 5 equal to 0 to answer the following. Solve this using the quadratic formula and solve this using the square root method and discuss the differences between both methods. Okay, then. So let's do it. So A will be the quadratic formula. So let's write our equation out. 9x squared minus 5 equal to 0. And to do the quadratic formula, we need the values of A, B, and C. What are my values of A, B, and C?
9, 0, and -5.
9, 0, -5. Good. And then quadratic formula this. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C. All over 2 times A. Okay, clean up, and that becomes 0 plus or minus the square root of, and what is that? That is negative 4 times 9, which is negative 36, and negative 36 times 5. What does that give me?
180.
180. Good. Okay, cool. Well, now we can ignore the 0, and this just becomes plus or minus square root 180 over 18. So now you have to break down the square root of 180. What are two good numbers? And if you want a hint, look at what we multiplied to get to 180. 4, 9, and 5. So what number does 4 times 9 make?
20.
4 times 9.
36.
36. And then there's that 5 left over, right? And look how nice this is going to work. What's the square root of 36?
6.
6. All right, guys. And now look at what we have. Plus or minus 6 square root 5 over 18. Oh boy, we're almost there. Can you reduce that 6 and that 18?
Yes.
How many times is 6 going to 18?
3.
3. So that's a 1. That's a 3. And we get left with plus or minus square root 5 over 3. Oh boy. That's like
We put the number on the outside if it's a square root, right? Like the 6 actually means 6 times. There was 2 6s, right?
exactly.
That's what. cool.
Exactly. Okay. So that was using the square root method. Was that fun?
No.
No. So let's explore B then. B says solve it using the square root method. 9x squared minus 5 equal to 0. Add that 5 over. And 9x squared equal to 5. And then divide by 9. And x squared would equal 5/9, which would then square root. And x would equal plus or minus square root 5 over 3. All right. Which method did you like better?
Neither.
Neither.
root.
The square root.
The square root method. It was definitely a lot faster, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And the difference is we don't need a b value, right? So the square root method is faster because there's no middle term. There's no b value there. So there's no need to do the quadratic formula on that at all. Okay. Let's just put that there. We prefer the square root method. Okay. On the difference is there's no middle term or b value needed. I'll just say no middle term needed. Okay, which will help us answer 19. Under what conditions is this quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0? Under what conditions can you use the square root method on it? So we want to apply a certain condition to it. So just like I said in 18, in order to use the square root method, you don't need a what?
B value.
A b value. You don't need a middle term. So the only condition to use the square root method on this is if b equaled what number?
0.
0. That's it. So in order to use the square root method, b has to equal 0. So if b equals 0, we can use the square root method. And that would look like ax squared plus c equal to 0, just like everything we worked on today. So no middle term, no b value needed. I'll put that up there. Okay. Cool. And number 20, for which of these graphs could you use the square root method to solve for the x-intercepts? Now, this takes a little bit of thought about the answers we've been getting from the square root method. Anytime we use the square root method, we get plus or minus. But what do you also notice about your answer? Do you get the same value when you plus or minus? Or do you get different values when you plus or minus? because that would be x equals -1, and that would be x equals 3. And then that's x equals 2 point something. I'll just say like 2.10. And this is x equals -2.10. So which graph could use the square root method?
First one,
The first one. Why?
because they're like the same, just negative and positive.
That's it. You have the same answer, but positive and negative. So for the square root method, we realized we never got different answers. That's -1 and 3. You would never get that by using the square root method. You would only get the same answer, but positive and negative. So we use the first graph. I'll say first graph. Because answer, or actually, let's say x-intercept, not answer. Because x-intercepts are same value, but positive, negative. There we go. All right. And that's it, y'all. That's the square root method. So definitely a lot easier than quadratic formula. Okay.